Hello everyone, Mr. B here. Welcome to our second Drawing Club live stream. I know this is kind of random and I didn't really schedule this, but let's consider this just sort of a pop-up live stream. Hopefully you guys are getting notifications when I go live. If you can join me, awesome. If you can't, it's recorded, and just check it out whenever you can. A couple things before I get started. I'm going to try to keep these live streams, for your sake, around 30 minutes. We may go over a little bit, just depending on how crazy I get. And sometimes I get crazy. In the chat, if you look at the chat below or to the side, I don't know where you're going to see it, but I did create a FLOS Drawing Club. This is a temporary space that we can meet and share our drawings. You can watch these tutorials and then sort of share your sketches with me, and we can sort of give each other feedback. Or if you're just doing some random drawings and you want to share them, or if you want some feedback from me or some of the other Drawing Club members, you can post them in this club. It's a Google Classroom, so the link is in the chat, and also the class code is in the chat as well. So if you want to join that, go ahead and join that, and then we can sort of talk to each other there. I can make topics and you can start sharing some of your work, and I can start sharing some of my work. All right, so here we go. This is episode 2, and we are going to be covering head anatomy. So I'm going to try to go through the different sort of parts of a character one by one, and we'll go over different things, you know, environments and perspective and all that, but I want to focus on characters for now and just building a basic person. So let's focus on that for now. We started with expressions because, again, that's really one of the first things that give your drawing a mood or a tone, but we're going to move on to our actual head anatomy. So let's do that now. So I'm going to pop off. I'll pop in and out like I did or like I do during all my live sessions, but I don't want you to be distracted by some of the faces I make when I draw. All right, so again, for those of you that are in my actual class, Florida Online School, we've talked about this before. I like to start with a gray background, a neutral background, whenever I design or whenever I draw, because it helps me see the highlights better. It helps me see the shading better. For these first couple tutorials, we're not really going to be dealing with a lot of highlights and shading, but it's just a habit I've gotten into to start with a neutral color. So for those of you that do draw digitally, whether on an iPad, a computer, or whatever, you can, you know, change your background to gray. There's not a specific gray, just I really just eyeball it. And then for those of you that are still traditional, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because I still draw in a sketchbook from time to time. If you're able, get in the habit of just kind of making that background first, the neutral color. But if you're not able to, it's really no big deal. All right, so let's get started. So one of the things you're going to hear a lot as we go through some of these tutorials is I'm just going to continue to sort of talk about basic shapes. You should always get comfortable with basic shapes. So when we're talking about a head, for instance, you have a basic shape, and I'm going to turn this a little bit. Obviously, this is a basic shape of a head, right? We're going to start with a circle. The more comfortable you get with basic shapes and being able to do it almost automatically, right? We talked about like the Karate Kid and muscle memory. We want to get this muscle memory up because once you get the fundamentals, right? Again, like if you're an athlete or if you're a musician, you've got to get the fundamentals down before you can take whatever it is you're learning to the next level. So start with a basic shape. I try to get into the habit, and again, you don't have to do this, is to try to think three-dimensionally. So what does that mean? So this is a flat circle now, but what I try to do is imagine that there's a line going here, right? But it's not just going there, it's not stopping, it's coming back around the backside. I don't make the backside as dark, so again, it's almost like you're looking through the actual shape. And again, you can see how rough this is, but I do make the line that's sort of out towards us darker, and also on the horizontal plane. So again, the line in the back is a little lighter, and that just gives this shape 3 dimensions, right? So let's kind of take this step by step if you want. I'm just going to move this shape over a little bit so that you guys can kind of see the process and visualize the process. So we started with this, right? We went to this, right? So where are we going to go next? We're going to do a technique that's called the Loomis head technique. I don't know why it's called that. I know it's called that. I'm pretty sure it's named after the person that came up with the actual technique, but I'm not here to teach about that. I'm just about the technique. The Loomis head technique, it's unbelievably effective, and I use it all the time, and it helps you keep proportions, and it will help you distort those proportions as well. So the first thing we're going to do, let's repeat this form again. So again, I have the line kind of on the front here and in the back going vertical. That's our vertical line, and then our horizontal line here, and then there. So what are we going to do now? Well, the Loomis technique tells you that we want to take a chunk of this circle out, and it's right here. This is the chunk we want to take out. All right, because that's going to be the side of our head. Our head is not a perfect circle. I know, shocking, right? But our head is not a perfect circle. So again, on the sides, it kind of flattens out right here. So that's what we're doing here. We're going to slice off. We're making a circle. We're going to slice off the side where your ears are going to go. And then you start drawing in this top line and dropping that line down. And then the horizontal line here, you bring that across. So you should have a cross here. So this is the start of our Loomis head. Right? Again, not perfect, but we went from here to here to here, right? So now what do we do? Well, what we want to do is, again, I'm going to bring this down here. We're going to draw these lines. Again, I like to work in 3 dimensions here. Let's take the chunk out of the side here. And that's really messy. And this is where Mr. B has to tell himself to slow down a little bit. So I'm going to slow down a little bit. So again, we're going to take the chunk out here. And remember, we have a horizontal line that comes here. And we're going to straighten that out. It kind of curves here, but as it comes to the side, it kind of straightens. Same here on the top. We have this sort of line that's on the top that curves, but once it hits this spot that we've carved out, you're going to drop the line. It's going to be a straight line. All right. So now what do we do? Well, this line will help you now go to our next part, which is the jaw. So we're going to take this line here, right? This vertical line, and right off of that line, we're going to continue to draw out this way. All right. We're going to continue to draw. We're going to kind of bring that line out a little bit. And then we're going to drop this line here that was in the center, and that's going to come down here in the middle. That's your jaw. So your jaw, we're creating the jaw now. So it's coming, if you look from the side, you're sort of coming and you're making this area here for your jaw. And you're going to bring the line from right here, right? This other line, and again, you're using your lines as your guides, and you're going to bring the jaw out there. Again, this is really messy, but again, we're not looking for perfection here. Otherwise, I'd be in really big trouble at this point. I'm just going to erase some of this because we're getting really messy now. But really what you're doing is you're setting up a grid with these lines so that you can sort of repeat this shape over and over again. And you're bringing this jaw out. And then over here on the top of the circle, you can kind of curve, go along with the circle, and then come down, and then bring another line out and come to the tip here. You see that line that I'm doing here? And again, we're giving dimension to the jaw. So all of this really is shaded in. And this part will be shaded in. And now we have this three-dimensional looking head, right? And then next thing we would do is let's repeat that, and I'll try to be a little cleaner this time. So let's go ahead, I'm gonna cut the piece out here, right? We have this seam that goes on the top of the head. We're gonna drop that line, make a cross here. This is sort of our brow line here. We're gonna bring this line, it curves a little bit. Now let's bring the jaw back out. Let's bring this line, make it a little straighter. Come up here to the brow line again and grab, curve your jaw so it meets. Just like this. And don't be afraid to erase. Remember, when we're doing these sketching, they're sketches, right? They're not meant to be perfect. They're not meant to be perfectly proportional. You're working on that. I can tell that mine, you know, doesn't have the best proportions, but that's okay. That's, you know, that's not necessarily what we're focused on at the moment. Don't be afraid to erase, as you see me doing. And you can see I go over my lines over and over again until I get a shape that I like. So now we're going to bring the neck out here. The neck here, and just kind of curve this off. You want to avoid straight lines, right? Because our bodies really, we're not robots. We don't really have hard edges on our bodies. And just step back. And if things don't look thick enough, if they look too thin, change them. But again, I like to use reference lines for 3 dimensions. And remember, go on top here to this top curve, right here on this cutout that we did, and come off of it, come down, right? We're going to kind of come down with it, follow, and go to the jaw. And that gives us the side of the jaw there, which is what we want, and we'll shade that in. Right, so we're just creating dimensions. We're creating these shapes here with our faces. They're not meant to be perfect. They're meant to give you starting points. That's all this is meant to do, is to give you starting points with your actual figures. This is called the Loomis head technique, and this is why it's great. So it's great, again, just for, you know, proportions. And that brow line's a little too high, so I'm going to bring that down. I'm going to bring that down to right about here. All right. This is my compulsion here. I couldn't let that go. I mean, I guess I could have, but that's a little better. But again, this is a technique that is supposed to just help you sort of set up your figures and your heads, and get you in a spot where now, because you have this technique, you can draw a head in just about any position, right? Because that's the tough part. This is the easy part, drawing heads that are kind of looking at us straight, right? We're looking straight at a head or 3/4, but what happens when, you know, the head turns? So let's take a look at that. So using that same technique, again, we're going to draw a circle here. Let's draw another circle here, but this time we're going to add these lines. So you're going to come this way, and then you're going to sort of, what you're doing really is you're following the curve. Follow the curves. That's all we're doing here. So I'm just taking this arrow and I'm following the curve and I'm going this way. right? And now I'm following a curve and I'm bringing this down and going this way, right? And now if you look, you can see a head. You can see a head here with a jaw. Let's take a look at what that looks like, right? So again, here's a circle, and I'm gonna sort of draw the cross here. And using the technique we just did where we're following the circle, right? We have a line going this way, and then we're gonna follow the curve, and we have a line coming down this way, right? So now we have this figure here, this jaw. There's a jaw right there. You guys can see that there's a jaw, there's an actual jaw there. And I like to pretend like, you know, they're wearing a mask. So you can kind of fill this in. This is the mask that they wear. All right. But all I did was follow these curves. That's all I'm doing to create this shape. And obviously when you go to the next step, right, you're going to start erasing some of this stuff. So again, I'm going to draw the head. I'm going to draw the cross. I'm going to follow this curve here out this way. I'm going to follow the curve here this way. And I've got my jaw here. Now I've got my jaw. So I'm going to go ahead and erase these arrows, right? Then again, I like to put like just a little mask on here, almost like a C, just so I can kind of see where the face is, and it just helps me orientate my figure. Now we're going to follow the curves again, right? But we followed the curves for the jaw, right? Up here, curves. So we're just following the curves. So you notice if you're studying your face, a lot of your face, there's these curves, there's no hard edges. Once we start developing characters, let's say like robots and monsters, some of them will have hard edges, but not human-like characters. So now we're going to follow the curves again, but in a different direction. So instead of coming out this way, in this way, we're going to follow the curves in the opposite direction, this way, right? And then we're going to follow this way, right? You're not going to go all the way to the back of the head. You're going to stop a little bit before. You can see I stopped a little bit before. Again, more curves. So Mr. B, what is that? What are we drawing with these curves? You're drawing the neck. You're drawing the neck at this point, right? So now when we pull this all together, when we put it all together, here's what it looks like. So here's the head. Right? Let's go this way. Let's go this way. Right? We have our jaw. We have our mask here with our jaw. We have our neck coming out this way, just like this. And we have our figure here. And then you can, again, just shade it. I like to shade it just to give it some dimension so you can kind of see, right? Because we have a slice of our head here. Under our neck always gets shaded a little bit because our jaw creates that shadow. And there's a head. Really messy, but that's the point of sketching. You want to be messy. You want to not be afraid to go over your lines and lines, because again, what are we trying to do here? We are trying to build muscle memory. That's what we're doing. So again, I like going over lines and lines. It helps me build that muscle memory to remember how to do these things. It looks messy sometimes. Sometimes you look at it and you go, oh my gosh, I'm not an artist. That doesn't look anywhere near. These are sketches. Remember, they are sketches. They're supposed to just give you practice. You want to get that muscle memory so that you're not worried about the basics and you can start getting really creative with your actual anatomy and your characters. But you can't really do that until you get these basic shapes down. So let's do a couple more angles because again, like I said, it's always very easy to draw faces that are looking right at you, right? That's you get used to that, but very rarely in stories, that's not really dynamic. It's, you know, it's very stiff when you're drawing this and you're going, that's a very passive, non-dynamic sort of pose or, you know, what have you. But our heads are usually turned a little bit. They're looking down, they're looking up, they're looking to the side. So using basic shapes in this Loomis head technique, it will teach you how to draw heads at all those different angles so that you can really sort of lean into your stories. And when people are sad, they can have their heads down, or when they're excited, they can have their heads up, and those kind of things. So let's jump into a couple more poses here. And let's see how we can use this technique. So again, I'm going to start with a basic shape. I told you, you're going to get tired of me saying that. And now what I'm going to do is take that basic shape, and again, I'm going to find lines. I'm going to have this line come down here. This is my center line. So this is the top of the head, right? And top of the head kind of curves. So we're going to curve over the top of the head and then kind of curve down the front, right? Curve down the front. And this is why we're doing that. So again, top of the head coming down, curving down the front. And now we're going to come down off the sides, following the curves, and then curve in. And then we're going to come over here on the side and following the curves and curve in. Well, there you go. Now we have a head, right? Now we have our head. We have two arrows going this way, this arrow going this way, and this arrow coming down here. But we have the start of an actual head, right? And it's at an angle. It's not, you know, just looking straight on, which again is good. So we're going to follow that technique. We're going to come down here. We're following the lines here, following the lines here to make the jaw. And you can see as you get better and better, this will come easier and easier. Then what are we going to do? We're going to come up here and again take the slice out. Remember, our heads are not completely round, so on the sides we have to take this slice out of the top here, and then that's when we start building that cross. Remember, we have that cross. This comes on the top. This will sort of tell us where the actual top of our head is, and then this line here will tell us where our brow line is. So what is your brow line? For those of you who don't know what that is, your brow line is kind of like your eyebrows. It's right here. So that line is signifying this area here. So your eyes would actually go under it, right? But that's what it's signifying, is your actual brow line. So right now, using that technique that we've just talked about, we have this head at a very interesting angle. Right? We have a nice angle here for this head. Again, it's better than something that's straight on. Again, you can imagine the eyes kind of going here, the hairline kind of going up here. We'll get into how to find the hairline and where the nose and the mouth go in a later video. But again, this technique and everything that we've covered here in this live session, let's kind of go backwards here. Using these basic shapes and this Loomis head technique sets you up so that you can create interesting angles for your character. You can create interesting faces You can exaggerate facial features, and we'll do that during the next video. I'll show you how to take these basic features and sort of exaggerate them to create these characters. But more importantly, this just gives you a starting point to effectively move your characters around in three-dimensional space. Again, you don't want to have your characters just standing looking right at their audience all the time like this, right? And then the next one, maybe you turn the page, or maybe you're doing a comic and the next scene they're like this, right? You want them looking up, looking down. You want it to be dynamic. So this technique is sort of like a cheat sheet on how to get there. Draw this first, and then you figure out where to put in the features, right? So you can go put your character looking to the side and at these different angles. So let's try a couple more angles with this, just so you guys can kind of see. And I'll see if I can do my best here to capture these angles. So let's have maybe this next one looking down. And again, I'm using the same technique. I'm going to curve over like this, and I'm going to kind of curve the line even more dramatically. Right? I'm not going to come straight down like this. I'm going to curve it even more dramatically. So let's see what that looks like. I'm not really sure what it's going to look like, but let's, again, come to the side of the head and follow the curve to the point. Come to the side of the head, or to the side of the circle, and curve, follow the curve, and come to the point. We now have our basic shape. So now we are going to draw the cutout. And this is going to really help define what our angle is going to look like, is this cutout. So I'm going to draw the cross here, and I'm really going to tilt this so that the top of our head is here. Remember, the top of the head kind of curves into the cross, and then the cross just shoots down. So that was a little more exaggerated than I wanted. And then the cross going aside, on the side will show you where your brow line is going to be. You're curving it. So you can see these lines curve, but then once they hit that slice, they straighten, they just go straight down. And once this horizontal, across the front, it's this curve. Once it hits this slice, it goes straight across. There's no more curve, it's flat. All right, so we have our jawline here. And then right off the end of this cutoff is where you can kind of bring your neck out a little bit. The circle of your neck. Bring the neck out from the chin, and then just curve this out a little bit. All right. And then if you want, a lot of times, sometimes I just like to shade in sort of where my mask or where the face is. All right. So you can kind of do that. That is, again, a face kind of at an interesting angle, looking down. And this is a very good technique for how to, again, just complete these sort of difficult angles. Anyone who's drawn for any period of time know that there's certain angles, there's certain things that you want to show your character doing that it's difficult. The perspective, the angle, whatever. There's just certain things that are difficult. And again, this is sort of like a cheat sheet for how to get those angles. Right? So we've got this person looking down. Let's do one looking slightly up. So again, but the funny part is I'm starting with the same circle. Whether I'm going up or whether I'm going down, I start with the same circle, right? But now, instead of the curve, I'm going to start the curve up here, and it's kind of going to go out this way, right? And let's just play around with the shape, play around with the lines. I'm going to bring the jaw down here. Remember, you're coming off the side of the circle. So I've got my jaw here. Let's cut the slice out of the head up here at the top. And since the person's looking up, you're not really going to see a lot of the top of the head. So I'm going to curve it and then drop that line. All right, and then curve it, and then let's curve this line. All right. Let's curve it this way. Curve it that way. And again, we have our jawline here, just following those lines off of the circle, right? And again, we bring the neck down sort of off the back of this cutout, just like this. And we bring the neck out kind of towards the as you get closer to the chin, you sort of find an area. And remember, everybody's neck's going to be a little bit different. So there's really no wrong answer. You just got to kind of draw your neck, take a step back, and see what it looks like. See if it fits your character's proportions. And again, a lot has to do with, are you building a realistic character? Is it a cartoon character? What kind of character are you building? And that will really sort of help with understanding how you need to draw your proportions. So I'm going to bring this brow line up just a little bit here, just to give it more of an appearance that this person is looking up a little bit, slightly up, right? They're not looking totally up, dramatically up, but it's a slight look up. And again, the more you tilt these lines, and this is why this is such a great blueprint, right? Because let's try to tilt this line a little bit more, even more dramatically, and curve this line a little bit closer to the top of the head, right? And then we can bring the head up just slightly. And all I'm doing is playing with the actual, what I like to call blueprint of the head. So now it looks like it's a little bit more dramatic with the tilt. So I'm going to tilt the actual jaw a little bit more too. So this line came down a little bit like this. I'm going to tilt it a little bit more at an angle like this, which would mean the head was tilted a little bit more. And again, I like to fill in the face. Why? I don't know why. I've just always done that. All right, so again, Loomis head. Loomis head, Loomis head, Loomis head is just a fantastic technique that I personally like to use a lot. It involves basic shapes. It gives you a blueprint that you can play around with. One of the traps that I fall into a lot, and I know a lot of artists fall into, is you see something really cool that you want to replicate, or you have a great idea in your head and you just want to put it to paper, right? You want to draw that hero or that heroine, and you're ready to go, and you have every bit of information in your head. Their eyes are going to look like this, their hair is going to look like this, and you want to just put pen to paper and just draw it and be done in 10 minutes. And again, anybody who's drawn for any period of time knows that that's next to impossible. I mean, it does happen, but you always got to start with these basic shapes, right? Always start with these basic shapes here. Circles, and you'll see as we continue on with this series, basic shapes are going to play a role in just about every part of drawing a character, and designing a character, and giving them a story, and giving them some sort of dynamic feel to them. And that's the idea. I have a lot of artists, a lot of students, a lot of kids, a lot of friends who are great artists, right? They can draw these really detailed drawings, anime drawings. They give them to me and I go, this is fantastic. But every time they give me a drawing, it's almost the same drawing over and over again. And that's not a criticism in a bad way. It's just, it's me challenging you guys to challenge yourself, right? Again, we don't want straight on, we don't want straight up and down, we want dynamic things. And this technique, this Loomis head technique that you're seeing today is a blueprint on how to draw a head, right? How to draw a head, and not just a head that looks straight towards the audience or a little off to the side of the audience, but a head that looks completely to the side of the audience, or that's looking slightly down or slightly up. Those are the things that are going to help, again, give your drawings, give your characters a feel, right? We talk about telling stories and they have to have a feel to them. This will help give a feel to your characters. All right. So I'm going to wrap things up. We're a little bit over the 30-minute mark. So again, we're going to keep doing this. I'm going to hopefully at some point get these scheduled so I'm not just doing these pop-up live streams. But feel free that if you get notified, join me. I put the information for our Google Classroom, our temporary Google Classroom, in the chat. If you're watching this recording, it'll be there. Click on the link or go to Google Classroom and type in the class code and share some drawings with me. I would love for you guys to watch these videos and some of the techniques that I'm sharing with you, and you guys actually try these techniques and share your sketches with me. Please don't be afraid to share your sketches. I know artists sometimes are really, I know I am sometimes hesitant and a little protective of my drawings because, you know, you're vulnerable, you don't want to get criticized. This won't be the place for that. Send it out. I will tell you, give you some positive, constructive feedback with what you're doing. All right, gang. I will see you guys hopefully next week. We'll do this either Friday or Saturday. Bye.